Naomi Holland, everybody.
Thank you. I'm good. Yeah, great. Thanks for coming, you guys. I applaud your courage for being here. I know this is a difficult topic, and it is going to be difficult, some of the things that you will hear tonight. And so I just want to recognize that I'm going to say some hard things. I'm going to share some hard stories and some facts. It is okay to feel angry, upset, nauseous. That is the correct response to injustice. And so I figured the least we can do as adults is to talk about it. It's better that you guys hear this stuff from me than your kids find out the hard way. So I'm here to represent all the children right now that are living in a very connected world. And overall, they're not doing very great. And so I'm here with the research, with the statistics, and hopefully you can leave tonight with a bit of a strategy or maybe some things that you want to do differently. So I encourage you to write things down. You can take a photo of any of my slides. I don't feel I need to protect it or anything like that. Share it, use it, apply it, whatever you need to do to keep your kids safe. So we're going to hit 3 big areas tonight: social media, video games, and pornography. And yeah, each one has many layers and complexities. Again, we're not here to point fingers or say you're doing it wrong. This is just so that we can understand what our kids are facing and then, again, make our battle plans. So why, who am I? Why should you guys listen to me? Well, for a couple of years, I was a recovery home mom in an emergency home with women that were coming out of the sex trade. They were fleeing the sex trade in Calgary. And so for 2 years, I was the house mom, and I got to live with these women and hear their stories. And I really learned firsthand about the sex trade from these women. Needless to say, my eyes were opened. And what I saw is just the nature of this industry, how predatory it is, how dangerous, how violent, how the people who are running it and profiting from it have no regard for human life. And these young women were just broken and battered and just absolutely devastated. That's even before they got to the sex trade, and then the sex trade just elevated everything. But I saw that these people had no regard for human life. And then fast forward a few years later, and the internet and smart devices, and all of a sudden, all our kids are on the phone. And I saw these same predators, these same dangerous criminals basically just move online. And now these guys are after our kids, and they are after our kids. And so that's when I started to, I used to speak just about the sex trade, but now I'm speaking about how it's connected to social media, video games, anything that we see online. And so that's really why I am here. You can read that and let that sink in. We have been so careful about, stranger danger or who's at the park or, where our kids are, and that we forget that they're most at risk when they're alone in their room with a smart device. This is the most dangerous place for your children to be, and I hope none of you have to run out right now to rectify that. But once they have access to the internet, the world has access to them, and there are people that are taking advantage of that situation. So we will come up with some strategy today. Before I talk about human trafficking and just predators online, I do want to mention that, if social media was just fun and games and everyone's just taking cute pictures with fluffy ears and stuff like that, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But the research is in right now. Our kids are not doing well. We are in a mental health crisis like we have never, ever seen before. So what you see here is the rate of depression, hockey stick rise about 2012 or so. If you can't see it, the red line is depressive symptoms in teen girls, and then the blue line is the internet hours, and then the green line is social media use. Now, what is interesting about the statistic is that 2011 is when 2010 Instagram came out, 2011 Snapchat came out. And so there's a direct correlation with deteriorating mental health once these two apps, basically every single child, mainly teen girls, were on these apps. And the problem with this is that it is these girls nowadays, it's not just about posting a picture. They are branding themselves. They're trying to create such an image. They spend hours, first of all, to get ready for that photo, and then take the photo, and then Photoshop it, and fix all the things that they don't like about themselves, and then post it, and then wait there for the response that they want, all the likes, all the comments. And even if they get 50 likes, one person says, oh, you look fat. Their self-esteem, their mental health, everything, anxiety shoots through the roof. And I think all of us have had similar experience. One negative comment and just ruins that whole, ruins why you even posted in the first place. So, anyone recognize the woman on the left? Julie Roberts. Yeah, yeah. So this is such a great example because here she is, a grown woman. Her brain was fully developed when she got social media. She's also, very, very beautiful, very famous. I don't think she has any real big challenges in life right now, I would say, looking from the outside in. Anyway, she posts this picture of her hanging out with her niece, having a wonderful breakfast, playing games and stuff like that. And you wouldn't believe the negative comments that she received. Even though 4 million people liked it or saw it, the negative comments, even to her, a grown woman with a solid identity, it hurt her. And she couldn't believe how much it affected her. And so if that affects someone like her, imagine what it's doing to our poor teenage girls. I'm going to show you a video next about with Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook and Instagram. And this just shows you the kind of industry and the kind of people that are behind these apps. Their number one goal is to hook people and get them on as long as possible and to stay on as long as possible, right? That's their only goal. So they don't take into consideration the previous slide with the mental health and depression and anxiety. Not to mention suicide attempts, self-harm have also skyrocketed recently. That's not their concern. Their only concern is the number of time that we all spend on their apps so that they can increase their revenue. So here he is being brought before the US Senate and being absolutely grilled for their lack of responsibility in our epidemic that we're facing right now. So here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, let me start with you. Did I hear you say in your opening statement that there's no link between mental health and social media use?
Senator, what I said is I think it's important to look at the science. I know people widely talk about this as if that is something that's already been proven, and I think that the bulk of the scientific evidence does not support that.
Well, really, let me just remind you of some of the science from your own company. Instagram studied the effect of your platform on teenagers. Let me just read you some quotes from the Wall Street Journal's report on this. Company researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of teenagers, most notably teenage girls. Here's a quote from your own study. Quote, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Here's another quote. Teens blamed Instagram, this is your study, for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups. That's your study.
Senator, we try to understand the feedback and how people feel about the services. We can improve.
Wait a minute. Your own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase anxiety and depression. That's what it says. And you're here testifying to us in public that there's no link. You've been doing this for years. For years, you've been coming in public and testifying under oath that there's absolutely no link. Your product is wonderful. The science is nascent, full speed ahead, while internally, you know full well your product is a disaster for teenagers.
Senator,
and yet you keep right on doing what you're doing.
I do recommend the entire 3-hour Senate hearing. It is really is powerful, as the 5 top CEOs of the biggest social media companies are absolutely grilled and forced to answer to the evidence that is out. Unfortunately, they've done very little to make any changes. But we need to know that these apps are not designed for any of us, but certainly not for... certainly not for the teen brain, which is still in stages of development. Another thing, not only is it highly addictive, these all these programs, there's no bottom, there's no end, and so they are designed just like a slot machine that you hope the next one's going to be more interesting than the one before, and so it's very, very addictive. The other thing that's harmful about social media is that it's desensitizing all of our young people, especially girls, to sexual content. It is loaded, with stuff that unfortunately is called softcore porn. There's no classification of softcore porn anymore. That's just mainstream media. But it is loaded with what I would call softcore porn. And so as kids are seeing this, they're being desensitized to it, thinking that it's not a big deal. So this is how it happens on any social media app. But here's an example from TikTok. So somebody will approach a girl online and say how beautiful she is, how attractive she is, and has she ever thought of modeling or fitness industry or something like that, and these can be teen girls. And then they would recommend, or they would suggest that, if you send me these pictures, this is the amount of money you will make. And then they will transfer that secretly. If they have access to a bank account, they'll do it that way, or it could be an Amazon gift card, or it could be, points to their favorite video game. But they're basically grooming girls to sell sexually explicit photos of herself. And maybe, some kids will say, oh, I would never do that. But they're still seeing it, and that is shaping their brain, shaping how they see and interact with the world. And so even seeing it is desensitizing them. We have seen this so much just by looking at our young people. And again, this isn't shaming or blaming anybody, but I think as a society, we just need to kind of examine where we're at right now. This quote from the pornographer, I think, is something that you guys should take home and chew on. What in the world did he mean when he says that women come, or girls, he said, come to the set already pornified or porn ready? Our culture is just shaping them and grooming them to be such sexual objects that they're almost detached from their own bodies. And so they think, oh, okay, well, if I get filmed having sex, I can make money, so why not? And so that's kind of just part of this whole toxic environment that our kids are being raised in. 1 in 3 kids, if you ask them, don't see a big deal with sending a nude. That's part of the desensitization process. So they've already been desensitized, which means they don't think it's a big deal to share a nude photo. That is so alarming right there. And unfortunately, those pictures never stay with the person that you intended to send them to. We have a huge problem across our country with sextortion. Specifically, these gangs, criminal organizations, are targeting teenage boys. And because boys are a little bit more rambunctious, or a little I don't want to insult them, but we know how boys are, a little more adventurous, let's say, less likely to think about consequences and stuff like that. And we know the teen brain is exactly wired that way, which is part of their charm. But it is also what makes them more susceptible to sextortion. So they send a photo thinking it's another teenage girl, and then they get flooded, bombarded with horrific threats about what this group will do to their loved ones, their family, themselves, sending that photo to the entire school, you name it. And the pressure has been so enormous on these poor teenage boys that many have taken their own lives. And so that's one way they're targeting boys. With girls, then they will be pressured for more photos or more videos. And because they already have that first photo, that's leverage, and they will use that to get what they want. And unfortunately, they're having great success at this. So that's another reason why we really need to be careful with our teens' access to social media. This is the top doctor in the States, the Surgeon General. His quote here, he just released a study. He has finally stepped into this ring, and he is calling all parents to delay children's access to social media. They're only seeing negative impacts, you guys, that at numbers and rates we've never seen before. So he's saying it's a national mental health crisis, one that social media is an important driver of, that we must urgently address, and I cannot agree more. So not only are they addictive, not only is it changing our kids' brains and desensitizing them to content, it's also very, very popular with traffickers. These are their top 5 social media apps. They're also on gaming apps. I'll cover that a little bit later on. But these are their favorite social media apps. It's so easy for them to connect with anybody online, and so at any one time a trafficker usually is connecting to over 100 kids, trying to chat with them and become really their best friend. Traffickers can look like and be any of these. It could be a family member, it could be that stranger online, it could be a girlfriend. Often it is somebody who will pose as a boyfriend, and I will explain that just in a minute here. Things that the traffickers are looking for are these push factors that make certain kids more vulnerable than other kids. And I don't know about you guys, but I think this describes almost every teenager I know, and certainly when I was that age, if I had social media, I'm sure I would have been considered high risk for sure. There's so many things that make our kids at risk, but these things definitely make them more vulnerable. And again, we'll explain that in a minute. So let's talk about the online friend. Within 2 minutes of your child being on any program or app, you can assume there's a predator there. Takes 2 minutes. So we have to assume any program, any app where there's interaction, where there's a chat feature, there's going to be a predator there. So are you involved in your children's online activities? Do you know who they're talking to? Do you know what programs they are on? Do you know what they're talking about? I'm going to test some of your guys' knowledge of some of the slang that the kids use and that online predators certainly use as well. So what does this stand for? Right, okay. This one? Right, okay, good. And, okay, I gave it away. Okay, meet in real life, is that one? Yeah, sorry, you got a free one there. Okay, what about this one? This one is... I chose the tame ones, you guys. You should see the other ones are horrendous. Oh, they are very creative. And I don't know how kids learn these things, but somehow they do.
Nicholas, I forgot, of course.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, I wish it was Nicholas. I forgot, of course. Yeah. So okay, and then in addition to that, they also use emojis. Like, who knew? Who develops these things? I have no idea. And how do kids learn this? I don't know, other than these predators that are teaching them these things. So all of a sudden, predators have incredible access to our children online, and then they become friends, and they start to desensitize them to harmful content, again, with the asking for a photo, asking for a nude, saying that everybody does it, gaining their trust, sending them free points or money or whatever. And our kids are not recognizing the red flags, and they do not recognize strangers and stranger danger, because they're in their own bedroom. So you guys, a shocking number of under 10-year-olds are being manipulated into performing sexual acts online. Our kids are so desensitized that they are contributing to the problem, not understanding the ramifications of such decisions, not just in their immediate life, but for their long-term future. The organization Internet Watch Foundation searches out child sexual abuse material, and they removed 254,000 videos or images, and 92% of that were self-generated. These are kids who have been tricked, groomed, and somehow convinced to share their own content, which used to be called child pornography, but now we call it child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. This is alarming First of all, where are the parents? That's a good question that we need to ask ourselves. And how are they not catching this? It's extremely troubling. These organizations also report that once a child shares their nude image, especially to a predator, it is shared and traded up to 400,000 times. And there's a huge demand for this content. Sometimes kids are tricked to meet in person. That happened just recently in Didsbury, half an hour from my house. Young girl, troubled home, difficult family life. I know, giving unlimited access to the internet by herself with no monitoring. And then this guy, which she didn't know what he looked like or how old he was, but she agreed to meet with him. And for some strange reason that night, the police were on patrol. 4 a.m. in the morning, they stopped him, and she was just a few yards away from where he was going to pick her up. Who knows what would have happened to her? She's 14. They met online. It says here in the subtitle there that that he was exploiting up to 100 children at a time. They're always casting their net wide to see which ones are the most vulnerable. So I want to explain to you about the boyfriend trafficker. This is probably the most common way kids are trafficked, especially tween teens in Canada. So, of course, you cannot trust a profile photo. Hopefully our kids understand that by now, but many don't realize that. But I think we often have this image of a trafficker being, this scary older man, and yet the average age of a trafficker in Canada is 24. That's how they can pose as boyfriends so easily, is because they take such an interest in our young girls, and then they just shower them with compliments and with love and affection that they're not used to getting. That's key. They haven't gotten it already, and so there's a need there, and these pimps fill that need, of course, with an ulterior motive. So I'm going to let you watch this video. So I want you to hear directly from a trafficker about how he gets girls to sell themselves for sex for his profit. These traffickers and pimps, about the same thing. They're so good at what they do. They are master manipulators. That's why they're so successful. And if we don't educate our girls beforehand about what to look for, these guys just have full access. And so hear from his own words how easy it is for him to get girls to do what he wants.
How do you get a girl to fall in love with you and get a girl to be willing to do this?
It just happens. Like, most of these girls, like I said, they're broken. It's not hard. You just gotta answer their call. You get in there, you find the crack. Like, some are drugs, some are just, they need to hear I love you.
But if they just want someone to love them, this guy's not talking about loving her.
Oh, I know, but that's what she believes. It's the illusion. Be there for them. Tell them what they want to hear. And you tell them, well, we need to put money away. I'm going to do what I do. See, I'm putting my 50 in. You have to do your 50. So there's another way you can have sex with guys. But don't worry, I'm going to love you. I'm going to go and sell drugs if that's what I'm doing on the side. Or I'm going to be making money and I'll be there to take care of you. At the end of the night, you're home with me. Every girl's had that fantasy wedding in that house with a pink fence. You sell it to her. She'll do it.
Why will she do it?
Because you just sold her a dream. Some of these girls are broken. It fixes them.
What fixes them?
Knowing someone out there cares. The illusion of it, right? Me, I don't let that happen. Because I'm not going to sit and lie to them and say, oh, I love you. I don't. I love my money.
And would you call that being a pimp?
No, I don't know what you would call it. I'm not a pimp. a manager.
I know that is so disturbing and scary. But I hope that really sinks in. Find the cracks. They need to hear, I love you, knowing someone out there cares. That's it. Like, that's crazy. That is our job as parents, as a community, as a church, as educators. Like, we have got to identify those cracks, so-called cracks in our young people, especially those who are vulnerable. And I got to say it, dads, you play such an important role here to decreasing your daughter's vulnerability. If she is not being loved at home, if she doesn't experience what it means to be treated as a woman or as respect, kindness, gentleness, if her value doesn't come from the way her dad treats her, that's usually what's missing in these girls' lives. And they will go find that somewhere else. And moms cannot fill that role. And those of you who are single parents, I understand how hard it is. It doesn't mean you go and find some guy to fill that role. I think that's where community and mentors and role models and just being extra creative, finding the good guys that will teach these girls what it means to be treated the right way. So that is a call to action for all of us. We need to be that. We need to be the ones that get to those kids first. This is what happened to Madison. She's from Nova Scotia. She same broken home. And that doesn't always mean, okay, that you're going to end up in sex trafficking. My parents divorced too. I'm here. I'm good. It happen. It doesn't mean that that's going to make you at risk. But in her situation, yeah, her dad didn't give her what she needed, didn't value her, wasn't around. And so she did turn to a boyfriend to meet that need, and he happened to be a trafficker. Sold her multiple times, beat her several times within an inch of her life, and forced her into the sex trade as his way of making money. I'm going to show you a picture of what happened to her when the one time he beat her. If you don't want to look, don't look for this slide. But this just shows you, again, the nature of these predators and how they treat those that they want to exploit and make a profit off of. This is her when she went into the Grand Prairie Hospital. They were not properly trained. They did not recognize the signs of trafficking. They didn't even call her mom because she's technically an adult. The doctor said if she had received one more punch, she would have been dead. Unfortunately for her, she did die at the hands of a John, a man who purchased her in Edmonton, and she was 21. This is what we're up against. This is modern-day human trafficking. They meet online in the luring stage. They become their friend. They ask them a lot of questions. They take a huge interest in their lives. And if nobody is doing that for these girls, they will flock to that. They will be drawn to that, and they don't even know it's happening, but their heart is being fed what should have been there already from childhood. So that's the luring stage. The grooming stage is called the honeymoon stage, and that is where they are, again, more compliments, showered with compliments, but also receiving gifts. Maybe the predator is taking her shopping or sending her gifts, but he is meeting every single need that she said she had in the first stage. He is meeting that need, and in doing so, basically brainwashing these girls to think, I'm the only one that can provide for you. I'm the only one that cares about you. I am the only one that will always be there for you. They are brainwashing them. And yes, it does happen to boys as well, but majority is girls, so that's why I'm going to talk in that regard, okay? And then the introduction to the sex trade can be subtle, like, oh, I need help with the rent this month. I can't make it. I'm really in trouble. Could you just help me out by just like doing this one thing with one guy? So it could be subtle like that, or it could be just full on force, coercion. Okay, you owe me now for all those gifts. You will now pay, and this is how you will pay. That's what happened to Madison. By that point, you're so afraid for your life or your loved ones that you don't even think you can run away. The fear factor is real, and that is how these guys maintain full control of these girls. I hate to say that it leads to death, but only 1% of those who are trafficked are rescued. 1%. That's a global stat. We need to change that. That is not acceptable. Here are signs of someone being trafficked. So isolation, addiction issues, being taken away from family and friends, that's all part of their strategy. And then having new things, having many cell phones, hotel keys, unexplained injuries, unexplained absences from school. Many of them start missing school, skipping school, can't show up for school because they've been up all weekend, being forced to work. These are all signs that we need to be looking for because it happens. There are girls that are trafficked on weekends and then they're still in school, high school. It happens. Madison had multiple of these, but her mom never heard of human trafficking before, and certainly Madison hadn't either, so they didn't even know what was happening. Okay, I'm going to wrap up on social media here. So what are we supposed to do with this information, right? It's always good to live in the solution. So here are my top reasons or my top strategies that I would encourage all of you guys to consider. First of all would be to delay social media as long as you possibly can. Give their brains a chance to finish developing. We know that for women, our brains don't finish developing until we're in our early 20s. For men, it's mid-20s. And that last part to develop is really the brakes. So our tween teens, they do not have the brakes, which explains a lot of the things that they do, right? But we need to be their brakes for them. And social media has no brakes, no filters, no nothing. It's just full speed ahead, as we heard before. So delay as much as possible. The U.S. Surgeon General, he's saying 15 or 16. And other top academics are also saying around that time, because 15, especially that transition from middle school to high school, is such a critical time. There's enough drama, there's enough stuff going on without throwing them into the world of social media. So I would urge you, if you haven't already, just have a plan, make a plan with your partner and say, okay, we need to be united here, because there's going to be pushback for sure. They're going to say, I'm the only one. Well, I don't think we should fall for that excuse. We need to stop catering to that. One, they're not the only one. My daughter's the other one. But there's two, at least, in Alberta. But that's just not a good excuse. Yeah, you're preventing them from depression, anxiety, being exposed to pornography. You're preventing them or protecting them from predators approaching them, from guys on the bus sending them dick pics, like just airdropping. It's happening so much, you guys. So that is what you are delaying for them. So delay or delete. And if you've already given it to them, it doesn't matter. Tonight is about hitting the pause button. You need to make a plan and say, okay, do some more research, do some more reading. I have a ton of resources on my website. Make your plan and then sit your teens down and say, listen, we've been talking, we've heard a lot of research, and I think we've done it wrong. We're going to have a new plan going forward. And this is the time to do that, you guys. We can't really feel too bad for where we're at, because we did not know the power of these things when they first came out. We thought the iPad was educational. We thought having laptops was great. We thought social media was so cute, good for staying connecting. We were told all these wonderful things. And now the research is in, and the numbers are saying otherwise. And so now is the time to regroup, reassess, and make a new plan for your family going forward. So that's my plug on that. The other thing I've done with my daughter, so I have a 16-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy. My 12-year-old knows that he will definitely be the last one to get a smartphone maybe in the province, because one, his brain's not developed. I tell him all the time, and even he uses that back to me now. He says, oh, Mom, I don't have the brakes, so, that's why I didn't do my chores. So it does kind of bite you in the butt a little bit. But with my daughter, to meet in the middle a little bit, I allow, so she has a smart device, but we prolong that as late as possible. But I let her get Instagram on my phone. So we share Instagram on my phone. It makes a huge difference. She forgets about it all the time. She's rarely on it. And she's just not, so she's hardly on her phone because it doesn't do much. There's nothing really on there. And then I've made a deal with her. It's a challenge that I proposed to you guys. It's called the 18 at 18. I have told my daughter that if she waits until she's 18 years old to put social media on her phone, I will give her $1,800 on her birthday. It's a good investment. It's really not that much. We probably would have given it to her anyway to get a car, something like that. So I've definitely feel like I won that one. She's all for it. She can have social media when she wants on my phone. It works. It works for now. Okay, if your kids are on social media, I do recommend a schedule in your house that you need to do your best to try to follow along, and that is setting timers on your screens and on your devices, but also there should be rooms that the phone does not go into, and the bedroom is number one on that list. Smartphones do not belong in bedrooms, especially with teens. So many bad decisions are made there overnight, especially, that they're paying for the rest of their lives, and some are paying for with their lives. And so absolutely no screens in the bedroom ever. I would establish that right away. If you need to rearrange your whole house, make it so. The reason why I say cars is because you have such a little time to connect with your kids every day. The car is a big one. If they have data, they can access pornography when they're in the back right behind you. Like, that needs to be a place where you're trying to connect, or at least being available for them to maybe start the conversation. And encourage our kids to get together face-to-face. Nothing can replace that face-to-face connection. And I know we get teams together and they're all on their phone, but we need to try to help. We need to be the bad guys here. We need to have youth night and phones are at the door, you know. I love the schools that are going for screen-free schools. That we are helping our kids. Because if they're the only ones in their school, it's really hard for them. They're not going to say, well, you know, the data shows that this is bad for my mental health. No, they need to say, you know, my mom is really a freak about this, and she will not let me get social media. And I've told my kids that. You blame it on me. I will take that, no problem. So you guys need to be that for them. And fight for them to get a full night's sleep. This is the most sleep-deprived generation we've ever seen, and that also plays into their depression and anxiety. Lack of sleep also presents like ADHD. So we need to fight for their right to sleep. And the amount of dings that they will get all night if they're allowed to have their phone in their room, especially if they're on Snapchat, is just unbelievable. You cannot get into a deep sleep at all. So make it a house rule. All phones get charged somewhere where they can't sneak it again. All right, I'm going to shift gears. We're going to go into video games and then pornography, and I'll move a bit quicker through video games. So, as I mentioned already, video games also are where predators like to hang out because there's so many millions and millions and millions of children that are on there. Here are their top 3 sites that they love to hang out at. And yes, predators prey where children play. All of these programs are so highly designed by scientists. The top neuroscientists in the world are hired by video game apps to make them as addictive as possible. That is why the kids cannot stop. And they are not like the games that we used to play. They are so graphic. They are so real. You feel like you are there. And for a lot of kids, where maybe life doesn't feel that great, in the world of video games, they are in control and they are powerful. And you can see why it just sucks them in. Some kids more than others, especially if there isn't a parent involved. Another danger about video games is how graphic they are and how full of inappropriate content they are. Another way that our kids are being desensitized to sexual material. Here are just some of the games that our kids are playing. So Roblox has rooms where you can go in and you can rape somebody. on YouTube, it takes 45 minutes on YouTube for the kid just hitting the next video before they will see pornography. YouTube is full of very disturbing content. And unfortunately, kids spend a lot of time on YouTube. If they are allowed to play violent games, that is affecting their brain and desensitizing them to violence. So we need to be in the room. We need to have earphones off. We need to be listening no matter how annoying those noises are, because we need to know when predators sending them, right? 99, MOS, that kind of thing. We need to be aware. This is Cam. He grew up in Calgary, and typical boy, loved hockey, had a lot of friends, until middle school when they all turned against him. He has no idea why. He thought something wrong with him for sure. They all turned on him, and he was bullied relentlessly. He quit hockey. He couldn't escape the bullies. They were just hounding him. And so the world of video games is very attractive to him. And of course, why wouldn't he escape into the world of video games where he had friends, he was good at it, he was successful, he could command armies. It was a place where he could not only feel safe, but he could feel successful. And again, the problem is it would be fine if that's all video games did, but they are so addictive. There's no end, there's no bottom, there's no level where you reach the top. It is endless. And so kids, especially that are escaping something, or kids, especially if they're on the spectrum for autism, they're the most at risk. Because there you don't have to make eye contact. There you can just lose yourself. And that's what happened to him. He totally lost himself. He ended up dropping out of school twice. His parents said, you have to get a job if you're not going to go to school. He's still, grade 10, 11 area. He would get dropped off at his job. His dad would go to work, and then he would take the bus back, sneak in his window, and go to sleep so that he could wake up and game all night. And his parents didn't catch that for quite a long time until it became such a huge problem that they realized their son had a problem. So one, it's addictive, but then the other thing is that as this world is so enticing, your brain is being fired like dopamine hit, like out of control, artificial dopamine hit. And that's not sustainable. It's just like a high you get from a drug injection, right? You're being flooded with dopamine. It's great for a second, but the reality is you're going to come down, you're going to crash hard. And the other thing is that once the virtual world takes over their brain and their heart, they lose all interest in the real world. Real relationships, real people. School is boring. School cannot compete with video games. Poor teachers, they're dealing with a 17-hour problem by the time the kid shows up at 9 a.m. Yep. Right? So this is what's happening to your child's brain on video games. Being flooded with dopamine. Flooded. To a point that our brains are not designed for this high level of stimulation. And certainly not an adolescent, undeveloped, unfinished brain with no breaks. It is not fair. So compared to this, school and family, dinner at the table with family, nothing else can compete with the world of video games. And that is what we are up against if you give your child unlimited, unmonitored access. If you're not sure about what programs, what apps, go to Protect Young Eyes. I'm on there constantly, and they will give you a proper app-by-app review. Before you let your child get anything, please read the review. I let my daughter read the Snapchat review, and that totally convinced her that she did not want to be on there. So Protect Young Eyes is an amazing organization. Here's what scientists are saying about violent video games. So, students who reported playing more violent video games in junior and high school engaged in more aggressive behavior in college. The amount of time spent playing video games in the past was associated with lower academic grades in college. And violent video games provide a forum for learning and practicing aggressive solutions to conflict situations. So that is another concern for violent video games, is that not only is it highly addictive, but it's basically scripting their world. And these kids are less disturbed by violence in the real world. They're also getting programmed to, when things aren't going their way, restart, click, done, start again. But the real world doesn't work that way. If you fail your test, you don't just get restart. If you are a young dad and your baby is screaming and crying, there's no restart button. You have to work through it. It takes patience. It takes time. These video games do not help our kids develop patience and perseverance. They're used to just click, restart, move on. So my suggestions for you as parents: 1, get educated, do the research. Read all the stats that are out right now. So many social scientists are sounding the alarm bells, begging parents to be more involved with their kids' gaming. Delay or delete. The younger your kids are, the better. I admit it's very hard to backtrack with teens. There are some teens that are going to need a full detox, and I do have a recommendation on how to start that process. But trying to cut back if they're addicted will not be received very well, that is for sure. But there are parents who have done it, and they've gotten their kids back. If your kid is to a point where you don't like them, it might be time for some intervention. Schedules. So scientists recommend no video games during the school day because they can't focus during the day. All they're thinking about is what time I can get home and jump back onto the world of video games. So they're not actually learning in school. Their brain, they're not even there. They're checked out. And so allow it to happen on weekends. I know this seems like a ridiculous schedule. It might take a detox to get back to this point, but your children's future is at stake. We have so many young men in particular getting to college who are failing and dropping out because they're just video gaming. These guys, young men, they don't even want to date because they're just video gaming. Like, it's taken over their brain. And I just don't believe that that's their best life. If you are considering gaming still, after my plea, get it out of the bedrooms, no headsets, co-play before you install a game, see what it's like. Always chores first, always. And I keep making this list as long as possible before I let my child play anything. And we don't actually have a gaming device in our house. There's just a few on my phone. I go out of my way to spend time with my son to give him high energy, full body activities, right? So whether it's mini sticks or playing basketball, or I was so glad there was no outdoor hockey this year. But bike riding, running, like whatever it takes, I'm doing it with my son, and it is hard. I don't enjoy any of it, but if you're not going to let them on video games, you do have to replace that time with yourself, and that's often the hardest thing for parents, and that's usually why video games are so handy, because I understand that. And then scientists recommend rule-governed versus rule-breaking if you want to give your kid a good chance to be a contributing citizen in our world. So Cam, when he realized that he had a problem and he got so depressed and anxious that he wrote his suicide note, he realized that he needed to get help, and he did. He reached out to his dad and went through therapy, did the detox, did everything he could, and now he's an amazing young man. He started Game Quitters, which is an amazing program to help other gamers around the world who gaming has basically ruined their lives. And there are many, many, many. And so if you want to check that out, there's a parent section as well as a kids section. You can do a 9-question survey to see if maybe you or your child has maybe a problem with gaming. And it's nothing to be ashamed about. We cannot compete with the science behind these apps. All right, getting into the good stuff here. So porn, you guys, we have to talk about this because talk about addictive, damaging, destroying. There's a few things you need to understand about pornography. All right, so allow me to be very blunt during this next section of the talk. Again, it's better you hear it from me than you think. It's not a big deal. It's just people having sex. What's the big deal? Porn is not what it used to be anymore. Nothing is nothing like the way it was 20, 30 years ago. It has progressed and advanced so much. The porn industry is like a race to the bottom. Remember, they are for-profit industry. They're one of the most aggressive businesses probably that exists out there. And they want consumers for life. They want as much time as they can possibly squeeze out of any human being. And so in order for them to attract their clients, they have to make it worse than the next company. And so that's why it's a race to the bottom. And they have pushed limits beyond, I think, what even pornographers thought they could have gotten away with 10 years ago. So social scientists that study all the porn sites out there, and there are many, they describe what kids can see, what all of us can see within 2 clicks. No filter, no nothing. It's not sex, it's torture. What all of us, and including our kids, can access these days within 2 clicks on our phone, at the back of the bus, in the bathroom, in your bedroom, at recess, on a sleepover, at your sports competition, is so violent, it cannot be categorized as sex. And that's harmful in so many ways. And I'll get into the different ways. But one of the worst things is that it is shaping our young people's understanding of what intimacy, relationship, and sex is about. Because they see it on the screen, they think, oh, that's how it is. And so they are embodying extreme violence, thinking that's normal. And that's why we're seeing, just even among teens, a rise in sexual violence. Because boys are watching this thinking, oh, okay, that's what it takes to be a man. Okay, that's how women like to be treated, girls like to be treated. Okay, well, that's what I need to do. And so they're copying it. And then girls who are seeing the same thing are believing that, oh, okay, violence is part of sex and intimacy. I'm supposed to like it like the girls on the screen. And so they don't even think something's wrong, even though, of course, their gut would be telling them that this isn't right. And so it's shaping our kids' sexual template. And we should be very concerned about that. We are up against a huge industry, you guys, bigger than all of these 7 put together. So our battle is big. This industry is unregulated, unlike most industries, and they are just going crazy trying to get the most number of viewers. This is from one website. It is one of the biggest porn websites for sure, but this is their annual report. They love to boast their stats. This is the level of viewers they're getting. You can't even do the math with that. Like, how many people is that, or how many views? I mean, there's just so many people we know that have a huge problem and addicted to porn. That is a reality that we need to talk about regularly, all the time. And this is not, again, about shaming. We want to recognize what our young people, well, everybody is up against, you guys, and men and women are struggling with this issue. So we need to talk about it. We need to support those that want help. We need to explain to our kids why they want to avoid this content as much as possible. So this is one website. There are 370 million porn sites out there. It is a third of the internet. So we have a big problem. Not only is it accessible, it's free, it's everywhere. One click from social media, all the people with porn channels have Snapchat accounts, Instagram accounts. I mean, they're always trying to get people to follow them. They don't care how old they are. But this is the level of dopamine that our brains are hit with when, and I believe any of us, view pornography. Nothing can compete. We talked about how addictive video games are. Those of you who have tried to quit smoking know how addictive and how hard that is. Porn is as addictive as methamphetamines. How is a young brain without brakes supposed to respond to that? They can't without our help. We have to protect them from it as much as possible, as long as possible. And then we actually have to have really open conversations about what to do when you see pornography. Porn destroys the brain. It hijacks it, and it actually changes the shape. These are real scans of an addict's brain. It shrinks the front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is according to this doctor, I quote, he said, that's the part of the brain that makes you human. And it depletes it. Like that's how destructive it is for anybody. I don't care who you are. And there's so many arguments that are pro-porn. And if you even express a concern with pornography, people think that, oh, you're anti-sex or you're a prude or like, I don't know why. It must be just the power of these porn industries that they have infiltrated all of our public spaces and our conversations and our TV shows and our movies. So many people think it's a trendy thing, but they don't realize how it's destroying lives, destroying marriages, destroying families, and destroying the viewer, his or her brain. So that is the concern that we need to understand and support those who want to quit. Another reason to fight and consider before consuming pornography is that it directly fuels the sex trade, human trafficking, which we talked about in the social media part, how many kids are being tricked and sold into human trafficking. Porn is the silent partner of human trafficking. They are the same industry. Do not think for a minute they're two separate things. They are the same. And many people who view porn will be driven to the next stage, which is to purchase or to go act it out on somebody. And often those who are most accessible are those who are being forced to sell themselves. And so it's, if we want to fight human trafficking, we have to recognize the role that porn plays. This one social scientist who has done extensive research on this area was asked this question. So the average age that kids are stumbling upon pornography is 11 years old. Okay, and I think I said it before, there's no such thing as softcore porn. It's all violent, very degrading, very racial, and their only goal is to dehumanize this person and humiliate them. And that's what our kids are seeing. So if they are raised on this content, this is what we can expect to see in the next few years. He is going to be cruel. I want you to picture our amazing, wonderful, creative, funny, athletic, smart, witty young boys. They should have every chance to thrive in life. We do not want this for their future. They are worth more than this. But if they're given this content, regular access, without people helping them to stay off of it, it's going to change their worldview. It's going to change who they are. It's going to make them extremely violent, very selfish, used to getting their own ways. He predicts the divorce rates are going to skyrocket. Deep-rooted unhappiness. For many people going to porn, they don't realize, just like Cam was going to video games, that it's a form of escape. And so unless we address those issues of those deep, unrooted happiness, porn, social media, alcohol, video games, those are just Band-Aids to try to numb out or to not address those issues. And so any of the men that I know who have quit their porn addiction, they had to address the root issue of why they were going there. And that's often low self-esteem, not feeling loved, not feeling valued, just not having a good sense of who they are. And then the porn world will tell them who they are. And they are abusers, aggressive, the ones in control, dominant, all these things that we know our boys are not meant to be that kind of a person. And so if we want to fight for them to have a chance at life and to have a chance at marriage, we need to fight and explain to them why they need to not click on pornography, because they will see it. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. They will see it. Most likely they have already, especially if they're going to school. So I can talk a bit more about what kind of conversations we should have. I want to say one more thing about pornography, just to really drive this point home about what we're up against and why it's such a critical battle for all of us, all of our families, all of our marriages. So we know that this is a big problem in our world, right? With the number of views that one website had, let's be honest, this is a problem that our society has. Okay, so now we know it's highly addictive. The other thing that we need to understand, and so much of this is backed by brain science, which is absolutely amazing. So it's not about my opinion, it's just about the data, the research that's out there. We know that with all addictions, it's a slippery slope, right? Your brain builds tolerance to any addiction. Cocaine, porn, video games, it's the same thing. So initially it took this much, to get that dopamine rush. Well, in a few months it's going to take this much, and in a few months it's going to take this much. And that's part of also why this porn industry has become so violent, is because all these, I'm speaking specifically to men, even though women view it as well, because men act out what they see, women internalize, and so a lot of the sexual violence we're seeing is people with porn addictions acting it out. But as they build tolerance, they need more content, more graphic, more violent, more disturbing, and so many men who are getting into child sexual abuse material never thought they would ever go there. And they are shocked at what it takes for them to get that same dopamine hit that they used to get, years before when they started with that one photo. So it is a continuum. There's no end. There's no person struggling with pedophilia over here, unrelated to the 11-year-old boy that saw the first porn here. It is a continuum, and it's a slippery slope. And there are factors that can make somebody more prone to addiction than others, of course. But for many, many men who have been arrested, who have had their computers confiscated, they all say they never, ever intended to be at this low point in their life. So that's what I'm battling for. I'm not against men. I'm so on their side because I think this is a huge battle that we have to come alongside and support our men to fight daily. This is a daily battle. This is an example of how bad things are right now. So last year alone, this is from International Justice Ministry, 500,000, 500,000 children in the Philippines were sexually abused online for Western viewers. These are men that never intended to go there, but because their brain has built tolerance, they need more. It's gotten them to this point. Canada is number 4 in terms of consumption in the world. And so, number 4, the US, the UK, Australia, Canada. However, in terms of volume consumed, we were no different than the other countries. We're only number 4 because of our population. 500,000 children were abused so that somebody on the other side of the computer can click, e-transfer their payment, get their fix. Where does this stop? Where does this end? It's getting worse and worse and worse all the time. We have to recognize the battle that we need to be engaged in, and it starts with that one click, that one photo, that one link. We have to come alongside those who are struggling and help them to recognize their problem as well as that they might need help. So we have to talk to our kids about this because they will see it if they haven't already, especially if they have their own device, especially if they're on the school bus. And so the conversation can look quite different at different ages, of course, but you have to make sure that you are an open book, that they can come to you with anything. This is a great children's book that I recommend for children probably 10, 11, and under. There's 2 different types there, a junior and a regular one. And so unfortunately, this is the world we live in, where we have to warn our children what to do when they see a naked body online. Don't use the word pornography. Many kids go and Google porn, not understanding what it is. And so that's where filters are very, very important. But they need to be warned as soon as you see it, no matter where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, you need to look away as fast as possible. The longer they look, the more damage it's actually doing to their brain and firing dopamine. So they need to be trained to look away as fast as possible and then to run and tell you or call you. I hate to say it, but we have to have those conversations. Other tips for how to have conversations with your children about naked bodies online. Remember, they don't know what you know. So they're not freaking out. When I talk to them, I don't say half of these things. They do not know what you know. They just need to know enough for their age group. You need to present it factually, without any emotion, be calm, and this idea of too much too soon in our internet-connected world is not a reality for us anymore. If you don't educate your kids on their bodies, on relationships, on sex, Google will. You need to beat Google to it. And they need to know that they come to you first about anything. And you have to be ready, no matter what they say, to just, okay, honey, all right, well, let's talk about that. And you need to be able to present the information, even though inside you might be absolutely freaking out. And that's okay. You freak out after they leave the room. That's normal. This bottom line, I have heard from so many parents who have lost their children to suicide based on what they have done online or what pictures they have shared online. You need to talk to your kids, especially as they get a little bit older. Of course, we're going to say, you shouldn't do these things. This is why you shouldn't do these things. And then we need to add this line, but if you do, I am on your side. We will regroup. We will make another plan. We will work through it together. I will fight for you. They need to hear this line. So many boys that took their lives due to sextortion pressures, their parents said, I should have just said, but if you do, we will work on it together. So that is so important. Add that to your talks. It's important to explain why these images are harmful. And I've gone over some of those. But with my son, what I would say, he's very sensitive. He doesn't want me ever taking a picture of him without his shirt on. And he's a boy, so it's like not a big deal, but he's always been very sensitive to that. And so when I'm careful, I always ask, is this a photo I can take right now? Sometimes he'll say yes, sometimes he'll say no. The other thing I say is this a photo I can take and post? He'll say, often, if he doesn't have a shirt on, he'll say no. I say, well, can I send it just to grandma? Yes, okay, click. Giving him control over that photo. And so because he's sensitive, I tell him, when you see a naked body on the screen, do you think for a second that they want to be there? And let me assure you, they do not want to be there. They are there because of a lack of choices or because of full-on trafficking, and they are forced. They cannot get out. With porn, there's absolutely no way to tell if they're there by force or they have so-called chosen to be there. Absolutely no way. They have to pretend that they are enjoying it, or the ramifications are, it could be death. And so I don't say that to my son, but I say, if you don't even want a picture without your shirt on, do you think they want a full body picture? I don't think so. And so if you look at it, if you click on it, if you spend any time on it, you're basically saying, well, it's okay, it happened to them. And so you become part of the problem. And so those are conversations that you can have with your tween and teens. It's really important to have these open conversations. Be available. And for our guys and girls, we just have to create circles of support and accountability, because they are going to make mistakes and they are going to see things and they are going to get into trouble. Who do they come to? Who do they talk to? We need to provide that for them. Here's 2 really good apps I'd recommend for if somebody is struggling with porn and wants to get a handle of that. Fortify is a great science-based program that many people have had success with, men and women. And for a faith-based approach, I do recommend Satya Sam. He was addicted for 15 years. It totally ruined his life. He was suicidal. He is a pastor's kid. He was a worship leader. Nobody knew he had an out-of-control addiction. And now he's very open about it, has an amazing Instagram account, and is helping other people to have success in squashing this addiction. So there's a lot of great programs out there right now that I'm just so excited to see. It's not the end. It's not your story. It doesn't define you. It's just one of those things that some people are really going to struggle with. And I think the least we can do is come alongside, encourage, support, and be there for them, without, of course, saying it's okay. Okay, we're moving. Final part here. This is all the solution stuff, okay? We're almost done. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me. But I've narrowed it down to my 10 top ways of really protecting our kids online. And please know that there's no end-all, be-all. You can have every security app. You can have every filter. You can have, that phone is on lockdown. If they want to, they will always work around it. We know how tech savvy our kids are. They can go to a friend's house. They can borrow a friend's phone. There's all these different ways. If they even search on TikTok or on Google, ways to get around the parent password, there's full-on tutorials how to take apart any kind of security feature. So our kids are always going to be 10 steps ahead of us. Your relationship is what is key. You need to pursue them and be involved in their lives. Don't let them check out on you. Their youth is so young. We need to fight. We're just fighting for them to have a chance to have a decent childhood. My number one strategy would be to pray. I do think this is a spiritual battle that it seems like the devil's winning, but we know that's not true, but it really seems like he is, it seems like he's winning, but we've just got to spend time in prayer for our world, for our kids, for the world that they're living in, for families that are struggling, for people that are struggling with any type of addiction. Nobody wants an addiction. They don't want something controlling them. And so we just need to pray for God to not only protect our kids, but, how are we to respond? How can we be part of the solution? So I would say that was my number one. Number 2 is delay is the way. The earlier you let them have a device, the longer you're going to be battling. Have you guys seen toddlers have an absolute meltdown when the device is taken away? That's scary. I think someday giving a child a device will be seen as child abuse, because I think it is that serious. They are so young. Their brains cannot handle that level of stimulation. Those devices were not meant for children. Steve Jobs, who built and created Apple, he didn't even let his teenagers have an iPad or smart device in his home. He knew the effect of it, and so I kind of follow his lead. They are so addictive. And these kids, if they're given this addictive personality before they're even walking or talking, what kind of tween, teen are they going to be? What kind of an adult, what kind of a parent are they going to be when they never develop self-control, manners, boundaries, all those things? So we really got to fight. Kids do not need devices. If you are a grandparent and you have your kids over your grandkids over for the weekend, I just want to encourage you guys. You guys play such an important role in this battle. Don't give in. Make your home a sanctuary. Kids need a break. They won't take it if they're not given it. But if they're given it, so at grandma and grandpa's house, we're going to put those, ideally, they don't even bring them. But if they do, we're going to put them in this basket, and it's going to go away for the weekend. And instead, we're going to do this. And that's so important so that they know that when they come here, it is safe. They don't have to zone out. Because I think over time, they don't even like themselves and how they're acting. I think they feel out of control. Oh, I keep going the wrong way. Okay. I highly recommend a strong daily dose of vitamin N, which is the word no. Our kids don't seem to get enough vitamin N these days. They need to hear it. Again, these kids, if they do not have boundaries, they may not be searching porn, but it will find them. And if the more time they're on these devices, the greater their chance of stumbling upon these things. And another stat says that 1 in 10 visitors to a porn site is a child under 10. They're stumbling upon it. And these companies are after these kids because you know what? They want consumers for life. And they know the younger they can get kids addicted, the more damage and the easier they are to create an addict. So, again, with the same rules I had before, so if you're going to give it to them, so first I'd say try not to give it to them as long as possible. Invest in other things. And unfortunately, that is your time. So you need to regroup as a family and say, what kind of kid do we want here? So invest in other things. But if you are going to, and of course there's a time and place for it, but just have boundaries around that. With my son, he has to set the microwave timer, not the timer on the phone. He doesn't even hear it go off. It comes on, swipe, gone. If I'm not there, another hour can go by easily. So I set the microwave timer where he physically has to get up and go turn it off. Remember, their brains are not developed. They do not have the brakes. They need to physically get up and go turn it off. They need that break. You have to help them with that. So set rules, set limitations on amount of time. And again, they do not need to be behind closed doors. They do not need to be in the bedroom. One lady that came to one of my talks, she said she went home, her son's 14, she just had this bad feeling. She checked his computer's in his bedroom, full of pornography. She didn't know it was an issue. So she had a talk, and he admitted that, it had gotten out of control and that he is viewing every day. And so they made some changes. He lost access to all of these things. A week later, she checks his phone. Full. He's 14. He can't fight that battle alone. So I urged her, get that computer out of the bedroom. That is totally not fair. You're setting them up for failure. She rearranged her whole house so that computer is front and center. And it's still going to be a battle. Absolutely, but at least there's one more roadblock in the way of him, and that pull. Yes, parent controls on everything. Everything has a parent control. YouTube, Spotify, Disney, it's all there. So you do need to do the research to figure out how to do it. And you can Google how to do that. And Protect Young Eyes has a great how-to guide. Make the internet a we thing, not a me thing. It's something we do together. It can be fun. It can be interactive. Those with teens have a harder time, I confess that. But it's not a privacy thing. It's about giving the world access to your child. And then push and fight for no screen time with friends. Find the families that are willing to do this. And we need to give that to our kids. This is the loneliest generation that we have ever seen. And they're so connected, but they're so lonely. And yeah, we got to fight for our marriages. I know that is hard, you guys. I'm not saying you failed if your marriage isn't intact, but it just increases the risk of our kids. And I know so many people who struggle with, well, I'm committed to this, but when they go to mom or dad's house, they have full access, and that partner can't sleep the whole time that the child is with the other spouse because they're so worried about what they're allowed to do and see. And so that is a battle, something we just need to really fight for. And of course, it's the children often from broken homes that are at such high risk. And so can we include them in our family? Can we be on the lookout for them? Can we sponsor their sporting activity? Can we go out of our way to pick them up and take them places and include them so that they're not home alone on their device unmonitored? Almost done. Number 8, open door policy. You can come tell me anything at any time. You won't get in trouble. That's really important. Wake me up. Tell me what you've seen. You will not get in trouble. I want to work on this with you. And the very, very hardest one, which somebody mentioned earlier on, sorry about that. But they are just watching, and they're just copying us. So if we are disengaged, if we are addicted to our phones, how can we tell our kids any different? And so they grow up seeing us on devices. That's all that they want. And so we do have to make a really conscious effort to put it away when they are in our presence. So get ready. Set a timer when they get off the bus. Be prepared, unless you are, a top doctor that's always on call. But most of us can actually put our phones away from after school until bedtime. It's not that long. Or just check it quickly, right? There are ways we could just do better on this one. And so may tonight be a wake-up call for you as well, or call to action. Again, I'm here just to promote Protect Young Eyes. The number one filter is actually the router. So go and search up how to put parental controls on your router. And then also on their website, you can look at how to do your parent controls on almost any app, any program. It is, we can't figure it all out, but they already have figured it out. All we have to do is be able to read and follow along. So speaking of which, I'm going to do one final exercise with you guys, and then we will wrap up. I hope you guys have some questions. But just real quick, if you have an iPhone, if you could take it out, I just want to make sure one filter's in place, especially maybe grandparents who give their phone to grandkids and say, oh, here, you can have it for a few minutes. So many kids have stumbled upon really harmful stuff when that has happened. So I just want I want to walk you through one thing. So if you go to settings, okay, are we there? Give me a nod if we're there. You're there. Good. Some people might need help. Click on that, and then click down to screen time. We're there. Give me a nod. If I can move ahead. Okay, click on that, or that arrow, and then you should go down a little bit and see content and privacy restrictions. Yeah. And I have to say, every now and then when you get an app update, it seems to dismantle this conveniently. Click on that, and then you do have to have that toggle checked. If you haven't done that, you might need to enter your password, but you want to get to content restrictions. Might be different on a different phone. Okay, are we there? I want you to, so on this page, you can choose your rating for everything. So movies, TV, music, everything. You can choose your level. And so here you can also choose your web content. Now remember, this is no guarantee. This is just one more filter. So click on web content. And you want to, some of you might have unrestricted on. This is just one thing, but I would recommend limiting adult websites. Not just guarantees, just helps you when your kids are on your phone looking for things. it might prevent them stumbling upon life-altering content. If you didn't catch all that, see me later. I think also this video will be available through this church on their website later, so you can go through it again. Great. Under Google, did you say? Digital well-being. Okay. Digital wellness and parental controls. Yeah, every app has something. It's never set to default there. You always have to go in and do it. That's their way of not protecting children. So education is power, even though this is, I know, difficult stuff and it might feel overwhelming, but you guys, now that we know we can make informed decisions, they used to give cocaine to children with toothaches in the early 1900s. They thought they were doing the right thing. I feel like we're in that place right now. We did not know the power of these devices. The research is in, the data is out. It is unquestionable, the damage that it is doing. I mean, if we just look at our kids, my teenager said, "Mom, you don't have to tell me the stats. I can see the kids in my class." They're totally checked out. They're not interested. They got their phone in their lap. The teachers have lost all control. And these kids are probably going to fail, but I think that's the least of their problems. I think they're going to have long-term challenges with their relationships. So I just want to encourage you guys. We have been here before. We can do better than this. Tonight is your call to action. I just want to motivate you. Don't feel you have to run home and unplug everything tonight. Just go home and process some of this information. Again, we're not pointing fingers and saying you have failed miserably. We did not know when these devices came out that they would be so addictive. So sit on it tonight, pray about it, and then make a plan tomorrow. I would ask you to consider making one change in your household. And maybe one change in your own personal life. What is one thing that maybe you could do differently? And then what is one thing you can do differently as a family? And I do recommend having a plan, and then having a family meeting, and telling your kids, hey, you know what? I've learned some things, and my job is to keep you safe. And so as a result of that, these are some things that we're going to do differently. And if you are willing to put in the time and the effort and walk with your child through this, I promise you, you will find a happier child. They will someday thank you, not initially, but someday they will thank you because you're giving them back the gift of childhood. And aren't our children worth that gift? So thank you, guys. Are there any questions before I will close in prayer? Yeah. What about the kids' messenger is the question. I would honestly go to Protect Young Eyes and look at that one. I know there are some definite concerns with that one, but please read their very thorough report on that one. Yeah. They've done all the research, you guys, all the data, and it is on there. So I would prefer if you read it in detail from Protect Young Eyes. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
Is there a place or a website you have that we can share with fellow parents about this? Like something like this presentation?
Yeah. It's going to be on your church website. I don't think I have. Yeah, okay. I forgot to put my business website. My business is Redeemed with Purpose, and I do have some videos of my talks on there. I'm also looking for more opportunities to speak in front of people. So if you felt this was helpful tonight, I would ask you to, one, write a Google review on Redeemed with Purpose, but also maybe refer a school or a church or a sports group or something like that. We're just not talking about it enough, and our kids are really paying the price. And also, I would ask for prayer for tomorrow and the next day, you guys, when this is Kelly who got me up here, by the way, you guys. She worked so hard to get me up here. But as a result of this church and the Bonnyville church sponsoring me to come up here, I have an opportunity to go into schools tomorrow and the next day, 2 on reserves and the outreach school twice. They're hungry for this information because they're seeing the damage and the destruction of relationships. What's that? Yeah, and I have a very different presentation for kids, but they do want information. They do want to know. We're not giving them enough. And so if you can refer me, I'd be happy to come up here again. It was only a 6-hour drive. Yeah, we need to do this for our kids. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. She said, if you guys could have me back again, I would love to speak to kids, you guys. And I can speak to kindergartners about this issue. Kids are so amazing. They don't live in fear. I can present similar material at a very age-appropriate way, and they know more than we think. That's really sad. I was to a Christian school last week, and I started talking about video games, and you can just see their eyes light up. They're like, it was scary. I thought they were going to come at me, but I just brought up video games, and they just like, ooh, it was scary, but they're being impacted already, and so I'm just worried about their little brains at such a young age. But yeah, I love to talk to kids. It can be fun. It can be interactive. It's not nearly as long, but yeah, let's do that for our kids, right? Yeah.
I'll just say something.
Yeah.
I will put a sheet at the back. So Naomi has a follow-up email. So if any of you guys would like to receive that email, that includes her massive resource list.
Right.
I will personally send it to you.
Okay, great. Kelly's just saying that if you want to leave your email at the back, I do have a very long resource list, but it's broken down into sections, like I talked tonight. And so if you need specific resources on social media, video games, and stuff like that, I do have it all broken down. Yeah. But Redeemed with Purpose is my business. I just started making jewelry, selling it, and using it as a platform to raise awareness against sex trafficking. I import product made by survivors, and I donate my proceeds. I didn't mean to get into this field of talking about it, but, I had kids, and they're asking for phones, and my two worlds just kind of collided, and so here I am. So thank you for having me tonight. I will close us in prayer if there aren't any other questions, but feel free to talk to me after. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a group for parents to change?
Yeah.
Wise,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything on the radar that we are involved with to relate so that people can get on?
Yes. She asked if there's any lobbying we could do to, there is actually. It's called Defend Dignity. And if you go on their website, they have a bill. And all they're trying to do, this is so minimal, but the porn companies are fighting this. They just want to make it so that you have to enter a government ID to say you're at least 18, which I think is still too young. But they want at least for there to be some kind of a block before children can access this violent, life-changing content. Right now, there's none of that. Any child, without even knowing what they're doing, can end up on these sites. And so Defend Dignity is working hard to at least force the porn companies to at least put that age verification on their websites. They have the technology. It would be so easy for them. Of course, they don't want to. So it really shows you what kind of an industry that we are up against. But yeah, Defend Dignity, it's on their website for sure. All right. Well, thank you, guys, and let me close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you that you knew this is going to happen. You knew we were going to be at this place in history. You knew the internet was coming. You knew what was going to happen with all of these different challenges that we're facing, and yet you chose to allow us to live in this time and space, and you chose our children to be here and now, this time and space. And so we just trust you with where this is going to go. I pray against a spirit of fear or being overwhelmed or depressed or feeling helpless about this situation. Lord, we know that you are in control, and for all things will work out for good for those who love you. And you have a purpose for us and our children. And we just ask that you would protect them from the very, very worst, but also that you would give us wisdom to know how to encourage them, support them, get them excited about life. Lord, we pray against the power of all of these programs to just paralyze all of us and to distract us from this amazing world and this amazing life that you have given us. And so help us, all of us, Lord, as we leave today, to do something different, make one change. Help us to see these devices for what they are and how it's taking us away from the real people that are beside us and that are around us and that you have entrusted in our care. So I just pray for a change in families and in relationships, and help us to get our kids excited about the real world. And so give all of these parents and grandparents and friends and aunties and uncles great wisdom, but also a joy for more, a joy for better. Help us not to settle. Help us not to become complacent. And so I ask your protection over each person as they leave, again, against a spirit of defeat. And thank you that we can trust you, and nothing is impossible without you. And I do ask that if you want me back here again, Lord, that you would orchestrate that, you would open those doors, and you would prepare the places so that I can just bring a word of encouragement and give me great wisdom. Next 2 days as I speak to schools and kids that have extra challenges in their lives. Lord, just, help me to be an encouragement to them. So thank you for this evening. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.